The Witch and the Definitely Dead Detective by Sadie Brent. Chapter 11. Whispers in the Moonlight. Evie stood in the butter-yellow kitchen of Lizzie's house, folding a pile of freshly laundered towels and humming a tune she couldn't quite place. The late afternoon sunlight streamed through the gauzy curtains, casting soft golden light over the eclectic room. Every surface was a kaleidoscope of textures and colors. The pale cabinets had mismatched, hand-painted knobs shaped like moons, stars, and flowers. Herbs hung drying in neat bundles near the window, releasing a subtle, earthy aroma that mingled with the faint citrus scent of Lizzie's homemade orange oil polish. Spinks was curled up on the window seat, his tail flicking lazily as if in response to some invisible conversation. Evie smiled as she glanced at him, her thoughts a tangle of gratitude and uncertainty. This house, Lizzie's house, now her house, was so unlike the cold, impersonal apartments she had rented over the years. It felt like stepping into a memory, though not her own, with its lived-in warmth and inviting charm. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and she picked it up to see Annie's name flashing across the screen. "Hey, stranger," Annie's familiar voice bubbled with enthusiasm. "Hey yourself," Evie said, cradling the phone between her ear and shoulder as she reached for a glass to pour herself some iced tea. "You're lucky you caught me. I've been busy unpacking the last of my stuff and trying to get ready for this grand reopening. I think I'm finally almost done." "Almost? You've been there for what, a week?" Annie teased. "Well, let's just say my packing strategy involved a lot of shoving things into random boxes and hoping for the best," Evie admitted with a laugh. "But I'm getting there. It helps that Lizzie's house was already so perfectly her. I don't want to change too much." "So, tell me everything," Annie prompted. "How's it going with the shop, the town, and have you made any friends yet?" Evie leaned against the counter, gazing out the window at the lush garden in the backyard. The greenhouse caught her eye, its glass panes reflecting the soft hues of the late afternoon sky. "It's a lot," she admitted after a moment. "The shop's amazing, but there's so much to do before the reopening, and the town is charming, to say the least. I've met a few people. Marcellus, the lawyer who handled Lizzie's estate, has been really helpful, and I met Al, she owns a salon in town, and Mabel, Mabel." "Uh-oh," Annie said. "Should I be worried about this Mabel?" Evie laughed. "Not exactly. She's eccentric. Let's put it that way. She claims to be a witch, but something about her feels a little off." "Sounds like fun," Annie said brightly. "Speaking of fun, I'm coming to visit." "Wait, what?" Evie straightened, nearly spilling her tea. "I'm serious," Annie said. "You're doing this whole grand reopening thing and you're way out of your comfort zone. You need me there to help, and I need an excuse to take a break from work. It's perfect." Evie felt a rush of relief at the thought. "You don't have to, you know." "Of course I do," Annie said firmly. "Besides, I can't wait to see this magical little town you've been gushing about." Evie smiled. "Okay, I'd love to have you here. Thanks, Annie." "Anytime," Annie said. "Now go finish unpacking. I'll call you when I've got my travel plans sorted." After they hung up, Evie wandered into the cozy living room, placing her phone on a side table beside an old lamp with a colorful stained glass shade. The space was just as charming as the kitchen, with its mismatched furniture, hand-woven rugs, and shelves crammed with books and knickknacks. She grabbed the last box of clothes from the corner and carried it upstairs to her bedroom. The room had sloping ceilings and a window that overlooked the river, its curtains a deep indigo with silver embroidery that shimmered faintly in the fading light. As she put away her clothes, she found herself pausing to admire the details, the intricate carvings on the antique wardrobe, the soft quilted comforter that felt like a warm hug. By the time she finished, the moon was high in the sky, its light spilling over the river like liquid silver. She crawled into bed, Spinks curling up beside her as she let out a contented sigh. But sleep didn't come easily. When it finally did, it brought with it a strange, vivid dream. She was in the greenhouse, her hands frantically pushing through rows of plants and shelves of pots. The air was thick and humid, filled with the pungent aroma of soil and greenery. She was searching for something, desperately, but she didn't know what. Her heart pounded as her hands shook, and a faint whisper echoed through the glass walls, indistinct yet unsettling. She woke with a start, her breath shallow and her pulse racing. The room was dark and still, save for the faint glow of moonlight streaming through the window. Spinks lifted his head, blinking at her sleepily, before curling back into a ball. Evie swung her legs over the side of the bed, her feet touching the cool wood floor. She padded to the window, looking out at the river. It was calm and quiet, the surface shimmering in the moonlight. What was that all about? She murmured to herself, running a hand through her hair. Unable to shake the lingering unease from the dream, she wandered downstairs to the kitchen. The house felt different at night. Quieter, almost too quiet, as if it were holding its breath. She poured herself a glass of water and leaned against the counter, letting the familiar coziness of the room soothe her nerves. Spinks joined her a moment later, weaving between her legs and purring softly. She bent down to scratch behind his ears. "What do you think, Spinks? Was that just my brain playing tricks on me, or something more?" He stared at her with his wide, knowing eyes before trotting off toward the living room. Evie shook her head, smiling faintly as she followed him. "You're no help, you know that?" She settled back into bed eventually, though sleep came in restless fits. And when the dream returned, it was just as vivid, just as unsettling. Her hands digging through the greenhouse, the whispers growing louder, the sense of urgency nearly overwhelming. When morning finally arrived, she woke feeling both exhausted and determined. Whatever secrets Lizzie's world held, Evie was certain of one thing: she would not stop until she uncovered them all.